everyone, Kelly here, and today I want to talk about the things that I read in the second half of January. I did do a mid-month wrap-up, so I'll link that down below. But I had a really great reading month. A lot of the stuff that I read was 4 stars. There was a couple 5 stars, and then I only had 1 2-star, and then I think 1 3-star. But everything else was like 4 and 5 stars, which is great. And I don't know if I was just doing a better job of picking books, making sure I picked things that I really think I would like, or if it was because I was focusing on shorter things. We were doing the short stack readathon that I was hosting with Kara from Wild Book Garden, and we were doing that where we were reading just all kind of short works for that readathon. And maybe because I was focusing on shorter things, maybe that was what made it such a great month. I don't know, but it was just fantastic. So let's get to talking about them. I do have a couple things I can't talk about because they're part of the HarperCollins union strike. So HarperCollins is still on strike, but it sounds like, from what I had heard, it sounds like that they will be doing some mediation soon. So hopefully this strike will end soon and we'll be able to start reviewing HarperCollins books again, and also that the employees will be getting better wages and getting the demands that they're asking for. These are the 2 books I can't talk about because of the strike. I have The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis, which is the last in the Chronicles of Narnia, and then Pandora's Jar, Women in the Greek Myths by Natalie Haynes. And I will be doing reviews of these where I record them, and then when the strike is over, I will post that video so you can hear any of the HarperCollins titles. You'll hear my reviews for them later when the strike is over. And now let's move on to the ones I can talk about. I'm just going to talk about these in the order I read them since they're basically all 4 stars. So first I have A Sliver of Darkness by C.J. Tudor. This is a short story collection. They're horror stories mostly. I mean, I would call them mostly horror, maybe, not even really thriller. I think I would just call these horror, but there are different levels of, horror. Like some of the stories are kind of just where there's an underlying sense of unease, and then some of them are like kind of gruesome. So I will warn that there is violence in this and some like kind of gross things that happen. I would say, like, I'm not normally somebody that can handle that, but the way she did this, almost because it was like so over the top in certain aspects and so like biologically inaccurate, I believe, like some of the violence done to bodies, I was like, is that even like humanly possible? It almost became humorous to me after a while because it was like the same, I don't want to spoil it, so I don't want to say exactly what I'm talking about, but it was like the level of violence seemed over the top to the point of being comical for me, so that's why I wasn't as grossed out. Like, if it hadn't been so over the top, I probably would have found it too gruesome for me. I don't know, it like reached that level where, oh man, I have my cat, I'm petting my cat and he's getting cat hair like on me, so sorry. So I didn't get bothered by it, but I'm just warning you that there is like some gross things that are happening in here in terms of like bodily violence. And I just thought that this was fun, like, to read. Not all the stories were great, so like I was kind of torn about whether to give it 3 stars or 4 stars, but I was entertained by each of these stories, like pulled in by it, whether or not I thought they were like amazing. So I gave it 4 stars because it was just entertaining, which is kind of what I wanted from the story collection. This isn't the kind of horror that really gives a lot of deep meaning. Most of these aren't. They're more leaning on just the entertainment side of horror. There were a couple that were longer, and those were the ones I liked the best. And the very first story in this collection, I think, is more on that side of horror where that one wasn't like scary at all. It was leaning more on that, like, what it has to say about society. So that one, I would say, leans towards that version of horror, and then the rest of them are mostly just seem entertaining. They might be speaking a little bit, but not necessarily. And the shorter ones especially, I didn't really feel like had a lot to say. But I did like how also in this, she has, like, before every single story, she has an introduction where she discusses how she came up with the idea of the story, what it had, like, meaning to it or whatever. I really enjoy that in a short story collection. She also has a, like, author's note at the very beginning where she talks about how this collection even came about, and I really enjoyed that, and I think it helped me enjoy the story collection more as well, because it kind of spoke to where she was in the middle of the pandemic and like not being able to write a full novel at that point, and leaning more into short stories. And so I just really enjoy that. So 4 stars, found it entertaining. Okay, and then next, leaning more serious, I have Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. And this one is, I don't even know how to, I mean, this is like just a family, a glimpse into a family and a lot of different people in this family and their thoughts and feelings, but just snapshots. It's hard to describe this because this is not a linear story. Basically, we are following several generations of this one family. The center of this would be a woman who became pregnant at a very young age. And so we're following her, her parents, dealing with, the pregnancy of their young teenager. You have the father of the baby and his family. You have the actual baby when she's older. So like I said, it's not linear. We're going back and forth in time of when, this woman is pregnant with her daughter, but then also when her daughter is the same age as when she got pregnant. So as a teenager, and just kind of a glimpse into all these people and little bits of their, almost like slice of life, but at different points in their life. And it doesn't go in the order of time. Like we start the book when the daughter is a teenager, and then we go back in time when the mother is pregnant with her, and back and forth. So we go all over in terms of timeline, depending on who we're following. And yeah, so it isn't like a traditional narrative, but it just really just shows you a family and their lives and in certain moments of their lives and how they relate to each other and how they things change. Like one big event can change a whole family. And yeah, I thought it was really good. Gave it 4 stars. I think Jacqueline Woodson is just an amazing writer, and I will probably enjoy everything she writes. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is that sometimes I would get confused on who we were following, but that I could probably reread this and end up giving it 5 stars. And because that was just it might take me a couple pages to be like, who are we following now? Because it doesn't say at the beginning of the chapter or anything like that. I don't think so. No, because I listened to the audiobook, so I didn't know for sure if it showed it in there, but it doesn't. So sometimes I would get a little confused, but other than that, I thought this was really well done. Okay, and then next I picked up some manga. So I read volumes 2 and 3 of Night of the Ice, and this follows a man who is a figure skater, and we're kind of following his career as he's headed towards hopefully the Olympics. And he has this thing where he has a superstition where he believes he can't do as well unless his friend does this little spell, says this little spell before he goes on the ice. And it's kind of their relationship, their friendship, possibly blooming romance, all that. And I just think this is the sweetest thing. I just love this. I've given every volume so far 4 stars, and I love it. I love their relationship. I'm trying to think if there's, so here they are on the back. I just love their friendship and their relationship. I like watching the figure skating moments. I don't want to necessarily find it because then you would know whether he does well or not. But yeah, there's moments where you actually see him doing his routine on the ice, and I like the way she drew that. These are just fun. I really enjoy this series so far. Loving it. 4 stars for every volume. And I actually read volume 1 as well to make sure that I was caught up on what was happening. So I read all 3 of them of the first volumes, and I will be continuing that, I'm sure, over the next couple months. And then next I read The Light Princess by George MacDonald, and this is basically just a fairy tale, and it was lovely to read. This edition has some pictures in it. Let me see if, so it has some full page ones and then had some few throughout. This is one I got from the library, but I had it also as an ebook version, but I liked reading it with the pictures. And yeah, this is just a nice fairy tale. It's about a girl who is given a curse, basically, kind of stereotypical, given a curse as a baby that she will have no gravity. So, that's a problem. But then it kind of follows her and how she lives like that, and what happens to her love life, all of that. And yeah, definitely feels like a fairy tale, and I just liked his style of writing. I can't really describe it. It just has that whimsical fairy tale type writing, and I will definitely read more by George MacDonald if a lot of his books and stories are like this one. And then the last thing I read was Me Moth by Amber McBride. And this is a novel in verse. And I'm trying to think of what it says, because once you've read it, I think it's hard to describe this without spoilers. So let me just see what it says on the description. So we're following Moth, that's her name. Moth has lost her family in an accident, and then she goes to live with her aunt, and then she feels kind of alone and from everybody at school, and then she meets Sonny, a boy who is also searching for his roots and dealing with depression. So that's all I'm going to say based on the summary. But yeah, this was an interesting one. I didn't end up rating this book. I feel like now, once I got to the end, that I need to go back and reread it before I would know how to rate this, or at least skim through it. I actually wrote like a bunch of notes as I was reading this because, yeah, this one, at the halfway point, I was kind of feeling like I wasn't really enjoying it as much. Like, I could respect the writing. Like, the writing had some really beautiful moments, but I wasn't really connecting, because a lot of this centers around the relationship between Moth and Sonny, and I just really didn't feel a connection between the two of them, because there's just not a lot of time, you know, in a novel in verse to like see a lot of moments together. And I was feeling this distance between them. But then when you get to the end, I realized that it was purposeful and it had a point and a meaning. And then I was like, well, now I'm questioning everything I thought about this book, and maybe it's brilliant. And so I really feel like I need to go back with the knowledge I have at the end and reread this. So yeah, I'm not going to rate this at this point, but yeah, it definitely was one of those where you close the book. I even saw this in a lot of reviews where people were like, yeah, I closed the book and started over again immediately. I didn't have the chance to start over immediately because it was like really late at night when I finished this, but yeah, I definitely need to go back through. So like maybe she's a genius. Maybe this is amazing. So yeah, not rating this at the moment. Will read it again, but I will definitely check out other books by Amber McBride now that I've reached the end of this one. And yeah, not sure completely how I feel about this, but those were the things that I read. So like I said, I didn't rate Me Moth, but everything else was 4 stars. And I did give one of the HarperCollins books less, and you'll hear about that when I talk about it later. But overall, really enjoyed everything that I read. I hope you had a really great January, and I look forward to having another fabulous month in February. See you next time. Bye.